Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame induction ceremony honoring our nation's space heroes. Please rise for presentation of colors by the Merritt Island High School Junior ROTC and the national anthem sung by Naomi Bradshaw.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome today's Master of Ceremonies, former CNN correspondent and award-winning journalist, Mr. John Zarella.
Good afternoon. Are we on? There we are. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Merritt Island High School, Junior ROTC, and Ms. Bradshaw. That was spectacular. Thank you very much again. It is such an honor to once again serve as your Master of Ceremonies for the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame induction. Everybody doing okay? Doing good? All you folks up there? Don't throw anything down on me. Don't you do it. Today we are here to honor two intrepid space explorers, both of whom have flown multiple missions, both of whom have made significant impacts in the sciences and in space travel, both of whom have made the history books as firsts in their fields, and both of whom have flown aboard this very space shuttle, Atlantis. In fact, these astronauts even flew together on an Atlantis mission. Together, Michael Foale and Ellen Ochoa comprise the 16th class of Space Shuttle astronauts to be inducted into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. But before we learn more about our two honorees today, we are fortunate to have many distinguished guests who have joined us. We would like to recognize those in attendance from the Johnson Space Center today, as well as NASA representatives from our own backyard. We'd also like to welcome Patrick Gavin from Congressman Bill Posey's office. Thank you all for joining us. I'd like to introduce to you some of our special guests, the astronauts in attendance today. He logged nearly 13 days in space and is now Acting Deputy Director of Flight Operations, Gregory C. Johnson. A veteran of two space flights, STS-127 and Expedition 35, and currently serving as Chief of the Astronaut Office, Christopher J. Cassidy. He served as flight engineer aboard the International Space Station for Expedition 41, G. Reed Weissman. He has logged over 605 hours in space as a veteran of 3 space flights and served as commander of his third on Space Shuttle Atlantis for STS-66, Don McMonagle. This 3-time flyer served as pilot on his second mission and commander on his third, Michael Bloomfield. He is a veteran of 4 space flights, twice serving as pilot and commander, Scott Altman. Also, here to welcome our inductees are several of the current members of the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. These are the men and women who have joined the ranks of this prestigious group of space explorers. They will be introduced in flight order and will pause for a brief moment in front of the stage before they take their seats. The command module pilot for Apollo 15, his 38-minute spacewalk, made history as the first spacewalk made from a command module during a trans-Earth coast. Al Warden. He was the lunar module pilot on Apollo 16's mission, the 5th mission to land humans on the moon, and spent a record 71 hours on the lunar surface. Charlie Duke. In 1981, this astronaut piloted STS-1 Columbia, the very first space shuttle mission. He went on to command 3 more missions and later served as director of NASA's Kennedy Space Center, Robert Crippen. He served as pilot during the maiden voyage of STS-6 Challenger, then commander of STS-51D and STS-51J, the first flight of Space Shuttle Atlantis. Carol Bobko. A veteran of 4 space shuttle missions, he piloted STS-8, the first mission with a night launch and landing, and later commanded STS-49, the maiden flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour. Dan Brandenstein. Dan? Logging more than 500 hours in space on 3 missions, this pilot and commander also led the Space Shuttle Orbiter return to flight team following the Challenger tragedy. Brewster Shaw. Brewster? He piloted the first shuttle flight to land on Kennedy Space Center's runway, then went on to command 4 more flights, including the first shuttle mission to dock with the Russian space station Mir. Robert Hood Gibson. A veteran of 3 space flights, he has logged more than 463 hours in space as a pilot and commander. He also served as director of NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, Michael Coates. A veteran of 3 space shuttle missions, he served as commander of STS-31, which deployed the Hubble Space Telescope. From 1997 to 2000, he served as deputy director of NASA's Kennedy Space Center, Lauren Shriver. He has logged more than 1,211 hours and 21.5 million miles in space, including STS-75, in which he became the first astronaut to log 1,000 hours aboard the space shuttle, Jeffrey Hoffman. She's a veteran of 3 space shuttle missions, including 2 Space Lab flights, and ultimately logged more than 722 hours in space during her astronaut career. Ray Seddon. He is a veteran of 3 space shuttle missions, logging more than 455 hours in space. He served as pilot on STS-51B, Space Lab 3, and was the spacecraft commander on STS-33 and STS-44. Fred Gregory. A veteran of 4 space shuttle flights, this pilot and commander logged more than 680 hours in orbit. He retired in January after 6.5 years as NASA administrator. Charles Bolden. She flew 4 space shuttle missions and logged more than 975 hours in space, including more than 21 hours of extravehicular activity. Catherine Thornton. This 6-time space shuttle flyer was the first American to command 5 space missions, including the first U.S. flight operations with the Russian space station Mir. James Weatherby. He is a veteran of 4 space flights, serving as pilot for 2 and commander for 2, ultimately logging 38 days in space. He is currently center director here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Robert Cabana. He has flown 3 space missions and logged over 144 days in space as shuttle commander, pilot, and station commander. Frank Culbertson. During his 4 space shuttle missions, he served twice as a pilot and twice as a commander, logging more than 40 days in space. He walked this red carpet as one of last year's inductees, Brian Duffy. He served as pilot on 2 missions, then commander on 2 more. Launching on STS-113, he lived for 5.5 months aboard the International Space Station as commander of Expedition 6. Ken Bowersox. He is a veteran of 6 total space flights, serving 3 times as pilot and 3 times as commander, including 2 missions to repair the Hubble Space Telescope. Curtis Brown. He is a 5-time space shuttle astronaut who has logged more than 1,600 hours in space. He flew as mission commander on 2, including STS-96, the first ever docking of a space shuttle to the International Space Station. Kent Rominger. Thanks to all of the distinguished astronauts who have taken the time to join us today. Let's have one more round of applause for our Hall of Fame astronauts. Before we move on with our ceremony, let us take a moment to pay tribute to the 3 astronauts who have passed away since our last induction ceremony. He was one of the original Mercury 7 astronauts who went on to serve in the United States Senate before returning to flight 36 years later aboard the Space Shuttle. He was also one of the founding members of the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame, the incomparable John Glenn. A Gemini and Apollo astronaut, he spent 73 hours on the lunar surface and has the distinction of being the last man to walk on the moon, Eugene Cernan. He was a 3-time space shuttle astronaut and spacewalker who spent 43 hours conducting extravehicular activities, Piers Sellers. Each of these extraordinarily brave men made remarkable contributions to the exploration of space, and their legacies live on. Please, if you will, bow your heads to observe a moment of silence in their honor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, here to say a few words on behalf of the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex is Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Theron Protze. Theron, it's all yours.
It's always hard to follow John. He's such a phenomenal MC, and the great tribute that we had to those three fallen astronauts. Good afternoon and welcome to today's ceremony. On behalf of more than 60,000 Delaware North associates worldwide, including the entire team here at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, thank you for joining us today. It is our honor to host today's ceremony to welcome NASA astronauts Michael Foale, Ellen Ochoa, into this elite group right in front of us, and to be the space explorers and pioneers of today. At Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, our goal is to tell the NASA story in the most compelling and immersive way possible, to give everyone of any age the chance to truly understand the value of achievements that space travel has brought to humankind. Astronauts are an important part of the NASA story. Through their eyes and their experiences, we have all had a chance to appreciate spaceflight as an insider. Those stories are now brought to life in an entirely new way here at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. Last November, we opened Heroes and Legends featuring the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame presented by Boeing. Through state-of-the-art technology, guests have the opportunity to virtually interact with every astronaut, the heroes, and experience the thrills of our space program like never before. Today's induction is even more meaningful because this is the first class of inductees to join the Astronaut Hall of Fame since its beautiful home opened last November, right here at this facility. If you haven't experienced Heroes and Legends and the new Hall of Fame yet, please take time to visit while you're here today. Another great exhibit was on January 27th of this year, on the 50th anniversary. We opened a new Apollo 1 tribute called A Rough Road Leads to the Stars. Their permanent exhibit at the Apollo 75 Center is dedicated to the lives, the accomplishments, and the memories of the three astronauts who perished 50 years earlier in the Apollo 1 launch pad fire: Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. The tribute serves as a testament to the human spirit, and that despite this terrible tragedy, we as Americans did not let those brave men die in vain, but instead continued our mission to explore the moon. It's an incredibly moving and informative tribute that I hope all of you will take time to visit. And a lot of other great things that are happening at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. This year, we're launching Summer of Mars. We're sending out a free ticket to the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex to every fifth grader in the United States. Why? Because that is our Mars generation. That is our next group of explorers. And we want to inspire those young children of our next generation to seek the stars or just to join the space industry. We're also having a lot of fun here. We just built a concept Mars rover that is larger than life, I'll just say. It's a huge vehicle that's going to go on tour throughout the eastern United States here next month. And it is designed for one purpose only: inspiration. So that when a child looks at it and thinks that they may be able to drive something like that in the future, that's going to inspire them to really seek the great science, technology, engineering, and math that our education system is providing, as well as trying to seek new planets. There are even more innovations on the horizon, and we are so excited about the future of this complex. Today's children need to have fun while learning science, technology, engineering, and math in order to become tomorrow's explorers. That is also why we're creating an all-new astronaut training experience, which will open up this fall of this year. The all-new ATX for Astronaut Training Experience will provide guests of all ages and the opportunity to train like astronauts for their missions to Mars, thanks to full motion and virtual reality simulators that let them feel they are really landing, walking, driving, and living on the red planet. They will learn how to grow plants. They will learn how operations through robotics, engineering, and this new program will be the gold standard in experienced astronaut training. As they finish that training, they're going to go on to the second program, which is now called Mars Base 1, which invites guests to participate in fully immersive missions to Mars and experience life on a prototype Mars base. They will operate robotics, conduct experiments, solve many engineering challenges involved in living and working on Mars. Short of joining NASA's astronaut corps, which we hope they do, or just enter the space industry, you simply can't experience astronaut training or immersive Mars simulations like this anywhere else on Earth. We look forward to opening these new programs this fall, and so much more, again, continues to come in the future. I would like to take a moment to recognize the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation and its board of directors. Board Chairman Dan Brandenstein, an amazing man. Thank you, Bran. Thank you, Dan. Executive Director Tammy Sudler and her staff and volunteers for their tremendous contributions for today's ceremony. It is a true honor to be a partner with ASF. On behalf of Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex and all of our associates, thank you for your years of dedicated service and the incredible job you have done and will continue to do to honor our nation's astronauts. Thank you for paving the way to the next generation's road to the stars. Once again, congratulations to this year's inductees, Michael Foale and Ellen Ochoa. Thank you so much, and John, you're back up.
You got the keys to that rover, Theron? Of course Al's got them. Why am I not surprised? Thanks, Theron. It certainly sounds like a tremendous future and exciting things ahead here at the Visitor Complex. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hall of Fame astronaut and Astronaut Scholarship Foundation Chairman Dan Brandenstein. Dan?
Well, good afternoon, and thanks to everyone for coming out for this great celebration. Obviously, we're very pleased to be inducting Mike and Ellen into the Astronaut Hall of Fame, and it's our great pleasure that they could be here with us, too. As the chairman of the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, it gives me great pride to be part of this great celebration and induction into the Hall of Fame. Back in the 1980s, the Mercury astronauts decided there should be a place to recognize and celebrate the astronauts' accomplishments and share the human side of spaceflight in a unique and personal way. Their dream of the Astronaut Hall of Fame became a reality, and look where it's gotten us today. It's really great, and thanks to Theron and his team, it continues to get better. The Hall of Fame seeks to celebrate and inspire, but more than that, a goal to keep America in the leading edge of technology and innovation. That means encouraging students to aim high, to dream big, and to pursue their careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. And that's where the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation comes in. The ASF awards merit-based scholarships to the best and brightest students around the country majoring in those critical fields. The prestigious Astronaut Scholarship is known nationwide, being among the highest scholarships awarded to undergraduate level STEM students. And since its inception, and counting this year's class, we have almost 500 scholars that have received this scholarship, and we have given over $4.5 million worth of scholarships. So it's really great that these scholars have this opportunity. And believe me, they are some tremendous people. Those of us that have the opportunity to do the evaluations and make the selections see some truly fantastic people. And we're lucky to have some of them here today. So we'd like to recognize the recipients of the Astronaut Scholarship in the past and currently, if they'd please stand and get recognized. Thank you very much. As I said, there's some truly amazing young people, and we're very proud to have them as part of our team and help them in their careers. We don't do this alone, though. The support we receive from all of the supporters and around the country, the astronauts, our friends at NASA, including Bob Cabana, Center Director, as well as Theron Protze, who you heard previously, and the Space Center, the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. Their help is invaluable, and we truly appreciate their involvement and help. So with that, John, I think we're back to you. Thank you again for coming, and we hope to see many of you at the gala tomorrow night. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And now I'd like to introduce NASA Kennedy Space Center Director and Hall of Fame astronaut, Robert Cabana. Your speech here?
No, I'm good. Thanks, John. This is a great partnership that we have between the Visitors Complex and the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. I think it's outstanding. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Kennedy Space Center for this 2017 Astronaut Hall of Fame induction. And to Ellen and Michael, my sincere congratulations on this recognition. It's most well-deserved. This is an exciting time here on the Space Coast, as KSC has established itself as a true multi-user spaceport, and NASA once again is preparing to explore beyond our home planet with SLS and Orion. A lot's happened since the wheels came to a stop on Atlantis back in July of 2011. Much has changed around here. You know, in all of human history, only 3 nations have sent humans to space: the United States, Russia, and China. But today, here at the Kennedy Space Center, there are 4 United States companies building hardware and infrastructure to launch humans to orbit. Lockheed Martin with the Orion spacecraft over in the Operations and Checkout building, SpaceX with the Crew Dragon on a Falcon 9 launching from Pad 39A, taking crews to the International Space Station in 2018, Boeing with the CST-100 Starliner over in the Commercial Crew and Cargo Processing Facility, launching on an Atlas V rocket off Launch Complex 41, also taking crews to the International Space Station in 2018. And now Blue Origin is building a huge manufacturing facility right here at Exploration Park at the Kennedy Space Center, launching off Launch Pad 36 over Cape Side, also taking humans to orbit. I think that's pretty darned amazing. You know, on top of that, at the end of this year, this calendar year, the construction of all the infrastructure and facilities necessary to process and launch the Space Launch System in Orion are going to be complete here at KSC, launching off Pad 39B. I can't say enough about the good things that have gone on here. It truly is an amazing time. I hope that while you're here at our visitors complex, you take the opportunity to explore our past, but you also learn about our future and see firsthand the progress that we've made in making our vision a reality. Thank you for coming today. And again, to Michael and Ellen, my sincere congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cabana. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to begin the induction of the 16th class of Space Shuttle astronauts into the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame. The 2017 inductees were selected by a committee of current Hall of Fame astronauts, former NASA officials, historians, and journalists. The process is administered by the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. To be eligible, an astronaut must have made his or her first flight at least 17 years before the induction year and must be retired at least 5 years from the NASA Astronaut Corps. Candidates must be a U.S. citizen, NASA-trained commander, pilot, or mission specialist, and must have orbited the Earth at least once and made significant contributions to the study of space. Our first inductee is Michael Foale.
This is looking up at your rocket, and this sends shivers down my spine every time I think about it.
We can basically point it out of the window and pull the trigger, and I get a readout on the back of it as to how far away the mirror will be.
I see it moving.
Be careful. The Spartan is clear.
Release.
Roger, roll.
When we thought there was a collision imminent, the thought in our minds was we are going to have to bail out. Then, as it became apparent that it wasn't a devastating puncture of the hull of Spectre module, we then proceeded to work together to clear cables and hold a hatch in place over that module's entranceway. Have the door open to keep an eye on what's inside if you can. Discovery has a go for release of Hubble.
I really don't need to read any of this. It's all, but you saw it all. A veteran of 6 space missions, Dr. Michael Foale has spent more than 374 days in space. Not hours, days. More than 1 year of his life in space. Let that sink in for a moment. Of that year, nearly 23 hours were spent outside the spacecraft conducting spacewalks. His track toward space travel began at the University of Cambridge, Queen's College, where he earned his Bachelor of Arts in Physics before moving on to complete a doctorate in laboratory astrophysics. Following his graduate work, he moved to Houston to pursue a career in the U.S. space program. A job at McDonnell Douglas working on space shuttle navigation led him to NASA's Johnson Space Center to work as a payload officer in the Mission Control Center. 4 years later, Michael was selected as an astronaut candidate. He flew for the first time aboard STS-45 in 1992, the first of the Atlas series missions to study the atmosphere and solar interactions. The following year, he flew on STS-56, which carried the Atlas II and Spartan retrievable satellite. His third flight, STS-63, marked the first rendezvous with the Russian space station Mir. It was during this flight in 1995 that he made his first spacewalk. He launched again on STS-84 in 1997 and joined the Mir-23 crew, conducting science experiments as well as a 6-hour spacewalk to help repair Mir following that collision with a Progress resupply ship. He spent a total of 145 days living aboard the Russian space station. 2 years later, in 1999, Michael was back in space, having launched aboard STS-103. The highlight of that mission was an 8-hour spacewalk to make repairs to the ailing Hubble Space Telescope. His final flight was aboard a Soyuz rocket, which took him to the International Space Station, where he would spend an additional 194 days and 18 hours living in space as commander of Expedition 8. Quite a career. But that's not all. No, we're not done yet. During his 30-year career with NASA, Dr. Foale has held numerous other positions there, including Assistant Director Technical of Johnson Space Center and, most recently, Chief of the Soyuz Branch Astronaut Office. He retired from NASA in 2013 to pursue one of his passions, developing eco-friendly aviation solutions. Among the many honors to his name, in 2005, the Queen awarded him Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. That just sounds cool, doesn't it? This distinction rewarded his contribution to science and public service outside the civil service. Most excellent. Michael Foale is the first person from the United Kingdom to walk in space and still holds the cumulative time in space record for a British citizen. He is also the only American citizen to have lived on both Mir and the International Space Station, although Dr. Foale holds dual citizenship in both the United States and England. The stars and stripes have always been displayed proudly on his flight suit. Ladies and gentlemen, the most excellent Michael Foale. To present Michael Foale for induction into the Hall of Fame, astronaut and former NASA administrator, Charles Bolden.
It's quite a privilege and an honor for me to be here to introduce my dear friend Colin Michael Foale for induction as a member of the 2017 class of the Astronaut Hall of Fame. As you've already heard, a British-born astronaut, Mike retired from NASA in 2013 following an amazing career that saw him fly on 6 space shuttle missions, a Soyuz, and 2 space stations. 5 shuttle missions, Johnny. What did I say? 5 shuttle missions, 1 Soyuz, and 2 space stations. All right. Mike was an Air Cadet with the Air Training Corps when he accepted an opportunity to work in the Space Shuttle program, moving to Houston to work with the orbiter's navigation system at McDonnell Douglas. He later joined JSC's Mission Operations Directorate in 1983, working as a payload officer on 4 shuttle missions. And this is when I first met Michael, because one of his shuttle missions that he worked was my first, with STS-61C. Ever persistent, Mike saw his application to become an astronaut rejected twice before being selected to join Astronaut Corps in 1987. Kathy Sullivan asked me to remind you that your persistence in getting into the astronaut office was like your persistence in trying to beat her in squash, which you finally did a number of times. Mike's first flight was as MS-3, on STS-45, Atlas I, NASA's first mission to planet Earth. Although Mike's NASA career was extraordinary in the breadth of his flight experiences, his cool under stress was brilliantly demonstrated during his Mir 2324 mission when a Russian Progress resupply vehicle crashed into the Mir station during a manually controlled redocking test of the Progress. While his Russian crewmates inspected for collision damage to the inside of the station, Mike used his expertise in physics to aid the Russian ground controllers in correcting the attitude misalignments that had resulted from the collision. He later joined Russian mission commander Anatoly Solyev to conduct a 6-hour EVA in a Russian Orlan spacesuit to inspect exterior damage to Mir's Spectre module. As John mentioned, Mike became the only American to serve on both Mir and ISS in October of 2003 when he launched aboard Soyuz TMA-3 to the ISS as a member of Expedition 8. We all know Mike for his exceptional record of performance as a member of NASA's Astronaut Corps. But in my mind, the true measure of the man is the mark he leaves on his children, who happen not to be here, but in their absence. So I'd like to wind up my introduction with a few remarks provided by his daughter Jenna, now a research assistant at Cambridge University, set to begin her PhD work on jet engine combustion mathematical simulation in October. His son, Ian, student in computer engineering at the University of Houston, Clear Lake, and his wife, Rhonda, who is here with us, now absorbed in geology and art. Jenna recalled, and I quote, "Daddy on the Mir had the reputation of being MacGyver, christened by the mission control team from the TV character. He could fix anything and think his way through difficult situations. When in Cambridge, Jenna's bike light doesn't work. Oh, hand it to me. Pops it apart, fiddles with the circuitry, pops it back in 2 minutes. Same with house porch light. Where's a screwdriver? Fixes circuitry in 3 minutes. Jenna and her boyfriend, Kai, came over to have dinner and get their bicycles fixed. Plumbing problem in grandma's house, bang, new fixtures. Still MacGyver, unquote. Ian remembered, and I quote, "Daddy taught me binary at age 8. He sat me down more recently and said, let's learn some Python programming. His physics and hard science background has made him amazing at learning new things. He looked at Jenna's thesis material using cutting-edge computational fluid dynamics, learned the programming system himself, and immediately subcontracted to JPL to develop an advanced rocket engine system. And finally, Rhonda, and I quote, Mike has found a very happy niche in our tiny town in Colorado with an intense spectrum of people. He can be a mad scientist working on favorite software and aerospace projects, and he can do some rocket engine testing in the Mojave Desert. He inspires high school and university students, as well as the public, in science and engineering in Europe and Asia. He sits in the tiny Colorado coffee shop with gaggles of teenagers having personal conversations and giving educational guidance. He has also given me great IT support in putting my film clip-intensive geology presentations together for the public. Very supportive of all of our pursuits." Unquote. In my farewell comments on Mike's retirement from NASA, I can remember I wrote, and it was sort of like this. "We salute Mike and his contributions to NASA as an accomplished member of the Astronaut Corps, starting with his first flight, shuttle mission STS-45, and when we flew together in 1992. Mike has worked tirelessly to support NASA's quest to explore the unknown. Mike, he continues to do that today. Ladies and gentlemen, a great father, a great husband, my friend and former crewmate, Colin Michael Foale."
Well, thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for the honor. Thank you, Charlie, for those really thoughtful, personal, and welcome words. I returned yesterday from the UK because my mum died 3 weeks ago. But the happy part of this is she died in Cambridge. Before she died, she knew I was going to be honored here. And it's a great honor for me from my predecessors, my peers, and my colleagues who are here today and around me. So thank you, really on behalf of my mum and from me, for bestowing that to me. My journey to this day, I guess, began when I was born. But even before that, when Mum Mary, my mother, as a US citizen, decided to take a vacation to the UK, and she met Royal Air Force pilot, my father, Colin, and she asked him for a light. That's how they did it in those days. And I came along about, well, more than 9 months later. Mothers are, my mother was actually, my dad was the hero pilot, and obviously I was very, very impressed by the flying and the noise and the contribution to global warming that he was making with his jet aircraft. But it was Mom in Minnesota, at the Minneapolis St. Paul. It was the World State Fair. John Glenn, one of our first heroes of this assembly, his capsule was right there, Friendship 7, in front of me, and I was a little 6-year-old boy. And, parents always work hard to set the bit in the child's brain. And my mother said to me, "Michael, would you like to be an astronaut? You could fly in that." And to me, it looked a bit like a charred trash can. But I kind of looked up to the ceiling. No kidding, it really is a space shuttle. But what I looked up to was a model of one. And I think it may have been something like a dinosaur or something like that. But I looked at that and I said, well, maybe I'd like to fly in that one day. Little did I know. My first visit to the Johnson Space Center was in 1982, and I met Bob Crippen. And of course, Cripp was a complete hero for any want-to-be astronaut. And I was in the MCC, I think, being shown where I would work as a payload officer, maybe, one day. And Cripp just came down the aisle, and he saw me. I was completely tongue-tied. I was frozen. And he, with his graciousness, his smile, his charm, made me feel at ease. And I've learned to understand that that is one of the fantastic qualities of the colleagues that I have in the astronaut office. Dan Brandenstein assigned me to my first flight, STS-45, for which I'm grateful, Dan. But he gave me an even greater gift, and that was Charlie Bolden as my first commander of Atlas I. Charlie has become my model on how to respect other people, how to listen to issues, and how to make decisions to resolve them. Truly, he is my model for leadership, followership, and all the other things that go on in making a team work. So thank you, Charlie. Eleanor Ochoa, I don't know if she's even here. I think she may think I'm going on too long. And I had great fun on STS-56, trying to take and I just remember taking a well-exposed image of her against the shuttle windows as she played the flute, which was really quite remarkable for our crew. Jim Weatherby is here, and he impressed me enormously on STS-63, basically managing a complete change in our flight plan when we added Vladimir Titov from Russia, and we were redirected to fly up to the Russian Mir station to basically go look at it, but not touch it, at least not that time. And then at that point in my career, everything went Russian on me. Not entirely to my liking, I have to be honest. Rhonda and my kids, Rhonda's in the audience here, you've heard that, and Jenna and Ian, who are small then, were brilliant taking on the ordeal of living in Star City for 15 months. And I often show a picture of little Jenna in the middle of the kindergarten, the Jetski Sad, surrounded by all the little Russian kids. They're not all being rude, but they aren't talking to her. And it was all because she wasn't speaking Russian and they couldn't speak English, but they grew to be friends. The journey to Mir on STS-84, that Charlie Precourt, Eileen Collins were the commander and pilot, was a great shuttle crew. But I'll give tribute to Yelena Kondakova, who I had not really met until I came to the US to launch on Atlantis from here. She basically felt the integration need I had to join the STS-84 crew because I've been in Russia for so long. And she also understood my struggle and my anxiety about living on the Mir with two Russian guys, knowing I would have to speak Russian to really make friends. And there are astronauts in the audience who know that feeling. And she was struggling with English, and so she helped me get ready psychologically to be on the Mir station for 5 months. that mission, I thought, was just going to be a kind of a ho-hum for me research mission, but it wasn't. And the progress collision, the depressurization, the loss of power, and attitude control, I describe it as tumbling, but Frank Culbertson doesn't think it's the same. Followed by various attempts of recovery, turned that mission into the most eventful and, I think to some extent, because of the camaraderie I developed with Vasily Tsiblev and Alexander Lazutkin, Sasha, it became one of the most rewarding experiences in a weird and odd way, even though so much trouble befell that mission. Kurt Brown is here today, and he helped make me American again. Not that I could speak it, but he led our crew on STS-103 to basically repair Hubble, put it back to life, right before that overrated climax called Y2K over Christmas of 1999, and we managed to complete the repairs and the upgrade of the computer. And then Columbia happened, so happiness and sadness in our program. And I was back in Russia again, and it's thanks to Rommel. Where is he? Yeah, somewhere over there. He called me up and said, "Hey, Mike, guess what?" And I was launched to the ISS on Expedition 8 with Alexander Kaleri to stay for 6 months. And I've got to say thank you to NASA, to MCC Houston in particular, who were supportive and superb in kind of making my, at least, I won't speak for Sasha, lonely situation much better than it might have been, as we were just two crew members looking after the ISS for 6 months. So yes, I think I have been amazingly fortunate to have had such a varied career, and it's due to the help, the support, the calm leadership and followership of my astronaut colleagues and the NASA team all around us here at KSC and across the country. So thank you to all of you from the bottom of my heart.
That was most excellent. Congratulations, Dr. Foale. And now it's time to introduce our second candidate for induction into the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, Ellen Ochoa.
Wanted to try to capture a sunset and just how quickly it happens in the payload bays.
Houston Discovery, we've captured Spark.
Great work, Ellen. landing gear touchdown. Nose gear touchdown.
And with Orion, SLS rocket, and the ground systems, those are 3 programs at 3 different centers. But Todd, Bob, and I all know that we're going to succeed as a team.
She was having way too much fun up there, I tell you that. Dr. Ellen Ochoa currently serves as the 11th director of NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. She has the distinction of being the first Hispanic director of JSC and only the second female director. Ellen's NASA journey began in 1990 when she was selected as an astronaut candidate. She has flown aboard 4 space shuttle missions and has logged more than 978 hours in space. She first flew in 1993 aboard STS-56 Discovery, becoming the first Hispanic woman to go into space. The 9-day Atlas II mission studied the effects of solar activity on the Earth's climate. As a mission specialist for the flight, she used her extensive robotics training to operate the Remote Manipulator System, or RMS, robotic arm to deploy and capture the Spartan satellite, which was used to study the solar corona. Ellen flew again on the Atlas III mission, STS-66, where she served as payload commander. Here, she once again was responsible for operating the robotic arm to retrieve the research satellite and provide valuable data on the energy of the sun. On her 3rd and 4th missions, STS-96 and STS-110, she served as mission specialist and flight engineer. STS-96 marked the first docking of the International Space Station, where Dr. Ochoa coordinated the transfer of supplies in preparation for the arrival of the first crew. She also operated the RMS during the 8-hour spacewalk. When she flew again in 2002 aboard STS-110 Atlantis, she and the Expedition 4 crew used the station's robotic arm to install the S0 truss and to maneuver spacewalkers around the station, marking the first time that the arm had ever been used to transport astronauts on spacewalk. Talk about steady hands. In addition to her incredible astronaut career, Dr. Ochoa maintains a strong presence in the academic world. She is the co-inventor of 3 patents and has authored numerous technical papers. She earned a Bachelor of Science in Physics from San Diego State University and her Master's of Science and Doctorate in Electrical Engineering from Stanford University, with her doctoral and postdoctoral research focusing on optical information processing. Dr. Ochoa is also a member of the National Science Board and chairs the Nomination Evaluation Committee for the National Medal of Technology and Innovation. She has received numerous awards, including NASA's highest award, the Distinguished Service Medal. Perhaps more importantly, she has the distinction of having 6 schools named after her in Texas, Oklahoma, California, and Washington State, inspiring countless young people all over the country to reach for the stars. Ladies and gentlemen, astronaut Ellen Ochoa. To present Ellen Ochoa for induction is Hall of Fame astronaut Michael Coates.
Thank you, John. I'd like to congratulate Mike and Ellen. The Astronaut Hall of Fame was created to recognize extraordinary individuals such as these 2. Both of you are wonderful role models for our young people, and you honor us with your presence. I first met Ellen when I was a member of the Astronaut Selection Board in 1990. that chose her class of astronauts. In all modesty, I think we did an incredible job. Her class is arguably the second best class ever selected. Apparently there's some disagreement over which was second best, but during the selection board discussions, the director of flight crew operations, Don Putty, asked us to remind him where Ellen had gone to school. I said she got her PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford. With a smile on his face, Don said, "Isn't that where Jim Plunkett went to school?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "And Jim Plunkett won the Heisman Trophy." And I said, "Yes." And Don said, "So Stanford is a jock school." I said, "Do you have something against jock schools?" And Don's answer was, "Oh no, not everyone can go to Oklahoma." So just think, Ellen, if you had gone to Oklahoma, maybe you could have made something of yourself. Now, Ellen is obviously one of the best and the brightest that this nation can produce. But what really impressed those of us on the selection board, and has impressed me ever since, is her coolness and poise under pressure. Whether it's the time-critical and complex operations during her 4 space shuttle missions, or testifying before Congress, or deliberating over difficult personnel decisions, Ellen is always thoughtful, well-informed, and decisive. Her outstanding leadership skills have benefited our space program during some very turbulent times, and hopefully will continue to do so for many years to come. A few years ago, when the deputy director of the Johnson Space Center, some guy named Bob Cabana, deserted me to go back east somewhere, I had to pick a new deputy director. Replacing Bob wasn't easy. He had big shoes to fill. But fortunately, JSC had a host of well-qualified candidates. At the top of my list was our Director of Flight Crew Operations, Ellen Ochoa. When I asked her if she'd like to become the JSC Deputy Director, she gave me what I call the look. Now, I don't know if Coe and Jordan or Wilson know what I'm talking about. Apparently they do. But she didn't say a word. She just stared at me with a look that could have stopped global warming in its tracks. She was obviously thinking very hard about how to decline my offer tactfully without ruining her career. It immediately dawned on me that I had miscalculated, and I quickly said, "Let me rephrase that question. Congratulations, you are now the new JSC Deputy Director." She had been quite happy as a Director of Flight Crew Operations, but sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the good of the space program. As the JSC Deputy Director, just as Bob Cabana had done, she made my job as Director so much easier, for which I was and will always be eternally grateful. When it came time for me to retire, NASA Administrator Charlie Bolden was gracious enough to ask me for a recommendation for my successor. I didn't hesitate to tell him Ellen would be a terrific choice. And he said, "Yeah, I kind of thought you'd say that, and I agree completely." He then gave me the very great honor of announcing Ellen as my successor. As a veteran of 4 space shuttle missions, and of course as the 11th director of the Johnson Space Center, Ellen's accomplishments are many, including having 6 schools named after her. But perhaps one of her most notable accomplishments is that she married a man who likes to cook. Coe is a successful lawyer, but he's also a trained chef. Perhaps we should create a Hall of Fame for astronaut spouses. I think I got a second on that. It now gives me a great deal of pleasure to induct one of our nation's finest, Dr. Ellen Ochoa, into the Astronaut Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you very much, Dan, and of course to you, Mike. And in my defense, I'd been director of flight crew ops less than a year, and I just felt I had so much more to learn and grow into that job before stepping up into the big shoes that Bob had just left. That was the only reason for that hesitation. Among the many things I'm grateful for is the opportunity to have worked closely with you when I was your deputy for several years. And not only did I learn a lot about leadership from you, but I just really, really enjoyed getting to know you and your wonderful family, Mike. I want to congratulate Mike Foale. I was so happy to hear he and I would be inducted together. When he and I flew together on STS-56, he, of course, had already had one mission. He passed on all kinds of helpful information that helped a rookie like me really know where to focus and hopefully not be too surprised when the actual flight happened, because being surprised in space is rarely a good thing, as you found out. And I appreciate you took that picture of me playing my flute in space. That was the only mission I got to take my flute up on. It was part of an educational video, and the picture you shot is one I have used many times for people interested in music. I don't have the luxury of thanking everyone who has been important to me on my own journey. It's a very long list, so I'll mention just a few today. People who know me know how important my mom, Roseanne Ochoa, was to me. While she's no longer with us, she was able to see all of my launches and followed my missions minute by minute. She loved everything about it. I'm so glad to have my three brothers here, Monty, Ty, and Wilson, along with my sister Beth, who died a few years ago. They've always been there to share in my life and support me. And I would like to thank all of my other family members and the many friends who traveled to support me today. Graduate school at Stanford is what really set me on the path to NASA. The space shuttle flew for the first time near the end of my first year at Stanford. My close friends, Amin and Dave, were some of the only people I told about my new ambition, and I appreciate that they didn't laugh. My thesis advisors, Joe Goodman and Bert Hesselink, were not only my research mentors there, but encouraging in many ways early in my career. My first NASA job was at Ames Research Center, and it certainly helped me in a number of ways toward astronaut selection. But it was really most notable for being where I met my husband, Co Miles. He's been by my side ever since, and his love and support have meant everything to me. I love that he's an engineer, among other things, as you heard, a lawyer and a chef, and can understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Our family escort on my first flight told me Co was the only spouse he'd ever seen who had a stopwatch during the launch, along with all the times that the abort calls are supposed to be made. And he was verifying call by call what mission control was doing and making sure they were all coming out at the right time. After we had kids, he had the difficult job of being the only parent when I was off training or in flight. We were blessed with a wonderful nanny, Ann Brown, but there's no question that Co's job was a lot harder than mine during those times. I'd like to thank our wonderful kids, Wilson and Jordan. They were too young, really, to enjoy my missions, or not even born yet for most of them, but I have tried to share my space adventures with them and encourage them to explore their own interests. Parenthood, while being much more personal, is clearly an even bigger adventure than space exploration. There's no way to adequately thank everyone in the astronaut corps, colleagues, friends, crewmates, including those still in flight ops who came today to share in this moment. Thank you for coming, and three of my commanders also came today. I really appreciate that. I remember that one of the first pieces of advice I got when I joined the astronaut office was said, okay, don't worry, there's really only two ways to mess up as an astronaut. Number one, failing to follow the procedures exactly as written, and number two, following the procedures exactly as written. So, it took me a little while to figure out what I should do with that advice, but in time and following the example of all my colleagues, I believe I was able to develop the in-depth knowledge and judgment that it was referring to. And of course, their camaraderie has made the journey so memorable and fun. You can hear a lot about what Mike and I accomplished in our missions and what those missions were about, but I can guarantee you that when we think about them, what we're thinking about is the people. Just as I'd hoped, when I first started thinking about the astronaut corps, I got to participate in conducting science research in space on my first 2 missions. I remember talking to one ecstatic scientist after we landed and asked him, what could we do to help his research? And he said, stay in orbit longer. So then I had the good fortune of being on 2 missions that helped assemble the International Space Station, which today is an absolutely incredible laboratory in space that's been continuously inhabited for 16 and a half years. It's a thrill to be welcomed into the Hall of Fame today along with Mike. I'm very grateful to the KSC Visitor Center, the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, and to all who support it. While the spotlight today is on astronauts, we know we're simply the ones who represent everyone in the NASA community who have made NASA's accomplishments possible. And that the biggest role we play throughout our careers and actually throughout our lives is in inspiring the next generation, including astronaut scholars, who will go on to accomplish more than we can imagine. I'm so thankful to have spent the last almost 30 years being a part of the NASA crew. Thank you.
You know, your kids are a little older now. You know, share that maybe you want to fly again so they can share the experience a little. She's all for it. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you once again the 16th class of astronauts to be inducted into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame, Michael Foale and Ellen Ochoa. Now we're going to do a little countdown here to an unveiling of our new inductees displays that will soon be housed in the new attraction Heroes and Legends, featuring the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame presented by Boeing. Michael and Ellen, please take your places. I assume you know where they are because I don't know where your place is. Okay, ready? As soon as you guys are ready, move the chairs. We're going to do this unveiling. We'll do a five count. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Unveil. Once again, I present to you Michael Foale and Ellen Ochoa, the newest Hall of Fame astronauts. Would all the members of the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame please join us on stage for a photo? You guys can move to the front and I'll position them. And guests, if you'd please remain seated during the official photos, we will have our astronauts stay in place after we're finished so that you may also take photos of this incredible group of astronauts. You'll have plenty of chance. Folks, if you'd like to take pictures, go ahead. Now's your chance before they... they leave. It has been my pleasure to be with you today on behalf of Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex and the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation and Al Warden. Thank you for joining us for this historic ceremony. Please remain standing as the Hall of Fame astronauts make their grand exit.